right. So the topic is imagine. Imagine. Imagine looking for a job where instead of you putting out resumes that you never hear back from, that the employers came to you. They're looking for you instead of the other way around. Just imagine what that would feel like. Imagine being evaluated based on your actual knowledge and skills instead of on how many of those keywords you can cram into your resume. Imagine what that would feel like. Imagine having a career coach for free to help you with resumes and interviewing and salary negotiation and networking and all the other skills that are associated with the job search. Just imagine what in the world that would feel like. Well, imagine no longer, because all this is available to many of you for free already through Indeed. Here we have Indeed, who comes to our meetings every other week. We think we know all about how to look for jobs through Indeed. You just put in your job title, you just click quit, and you go into advanced, and you have your Boolean thing, and it's easy. But they keep coming up with, they keep buying new companies, and then they adjust the features and the services that they offer accordingly, and they come up with all kinds of stuff that they, I'm sure they beta test them somewhere, and they kind of sneak them out into the public view. And so there are these services that are out there that many of us don't know about. And 2 of them, or 3 of them, are so incredible that we're going to share. So first, they have a series of assessments. They have assessments you can take. Also, companies can design their own assessments. But the first handout that you're getting is 3 pages, I think, of the 50 current assessments that Indeed has come up with. They had psychologists and test experts who've come up with these 50 assessments. And you can go in and take an assessment, take all the assessments if you want, and they become part of your personal profile on Indeed. Excuse me. And then you can decide if you want other people to be able to look at the scores or not. But it's kind of fun. There's one on problem solving, for example. Some of them are on soft skills. Some of them are on hard skills. There's a basic and intermediate Excel test, for example. So there are those kinds of assessments. And then companies can design their own assessments that they want you to take. So as you're getting there, you're going to see from the list that it covers kind of a wide range of different topics. But they also have a thing called a phone screen response assessment. And companies can say, I want, before I actually talk to this person, I want to have a phone screen, and they can have up to 20 questions, and they just pick and choose. These are 20 questions that Indeed has come up with. In this particular example that I pulled off the internet, this particular company wanted 4 questions, 4 screening questions, and so you're talking on the phone, and you have up to 2 minutes to answer each of these screening questions. In this particular case, the first question was, please tell us a little bit about your background and experience. And that person answered that very comprehensive question in just 44 seconds. So maybe they didn't have a whole lot of information to throw in there. Question number 2 was, please tell us why you are interested in this position and how you can make a difference. So that is a key opportunity question. Why do you want this position? Why are you interested in this position? And how can you make a difference? Well, it took him only 19 seconds to cover that answer. So I'm thinking that he didn't probably do very well. The third question was, please tell us about a past accomplishment that you are especially proud of and why. Did a little bit better with this one. Took 1 minute and 18 seconds to tell about an accomplishment. So that's pretty good. And by the way, it's not a human being asking these questions. It's a robot asking these questions. And so but your answer is being recorded, and your answer is going to be screened by a human being. Question number 4 is, please describe a difficult situation you encountered in a previous job and how you resolved it. And so 44 seconds. In the classes that we teach, and all of you know this already, when you have a specific job posting that you're going after, you need to create a story for every single thing that the job description is asking for. If the job description says, we're looking for a good problem solver, you have to have a story about a time you solved a problem, right? This is like Job Search 101. If it says we want somebody who can work in a high-pressure situation, you have to have a story for that. You have to have a story for every single thing that the company is looking for, but that's not where it ends. You also have to have a story for the standard 6 or whatever it is, 6 or 7 soft skills. One is, or standard questions like a conflict. Tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a coworker, a manager, or a customer. You have to have a conflict. How do you resolve conflicts? You have to have a conflict story. You have to have a story about accomplishment. You have to have a story about failure. Tell me about a time that you failed or made a mistake or missed a deadline. And then obviously the follow-up, the last thing you say in your failure story is, but here was the lesson I learned from that failure. So all of those things are just standard. And then, so you have to have those standard questions and the questions from the job posting, and then you have to have soft skill kinds of things about communication and about empathy and about persuasion and that sort of stuff. So you've got this huge inventory of stories that you should already have prepared before you apply for a job, before you go into an interview. And then it makes this whole process a lot easier. So then the company gets to say, was this phone screen helpful in making a decision about this candidate? Yes or no? So there is that. One of the categories, yes?
Going back, so is that a one-shot deal? So if you take
Yes, that's a one-shot deal. For that particular company, yes. So each company has the option of creating its own phone screen, and it might be a different phone screen for different jobs. And so some may be longer. As I said, they have up to 20 questions that they can ask in the phone screen. So at any rate, and yes, that can change, and you can have a chance to answer those multiple times. So one of the assessments that's on the list that you got is problem solving. And so you can go into, you can Google Indeed.com assessments, and you can eventually find that list that I gave to you, and then you can click on each one and it'll say, here's the reason, this is what they're trying to find out with this test, with this assessment, and here are some sample questions. So you can look that up for every single one of those 50 assessments. And so I thought I'd just show you what it's like. This is one of the sample questions for problem solving, and it says, based on the information below, what's the best order to display products in your store? So here's what you know. This is based on an electronics marketing report. Earbuds sell well next to phones, but poorly next to laptops. That's a given. Screen cleaners sell well next to earbuds, and tablets sell best when displayed between items. So those are the 3 assertions that you have. And so based on those 3 truths, how are you supposed to organize your merchandise? Yes, I see that hand. Would you like to guess?
No, but I actually did this test last night for GM.
For GM, this very test.
A variant of it.
A variant of it. So that's why going in there and practicing some of these are kind of fun. These are standard IQ tests or standard logic tests, standard reasoning tests. So in this one, it's the problem solving. So anybody want to, have you already looked this up? Anybody have an answer?
I think it's 1.
Everybody thinks it's 1? Okay. So I think you are correct. I did this last night. I was very proud of myself.
But that was the question. You take these tests, are they recorded, or can you take it again and again and again? just so that you can kind of learn? Because if you take this test and you make a mistake.
The answer to that is no. But hold that question because it's featured on a screen. All right. So do you need statistics about this? I think you probably do. We're all running on data. So candidates who have completed an Indeed assessment are 30% more likely to get a positive response from that employer. So just the fact that they have that new data on you, they don't have to judge you completely from your resume. They now have a test or maybe multiple tests. Indeed, when they design a test, their tests generally take 10 minutes apiece. And I've printed out most of the FAQs, the frequently asked questions for job seekers. I also read the frequently asked questions for employers. And one of the, excuse me, one of the employer questions was how long should we make our tests? If we design a test for our company, how long should we make them? And Indeed said 30 minutes, you give a test for 30 minutes, people are getting up and walking away. So you should try to keep it shorter than that. And maybe 20 is the max that anybody's going to sit there and take a test for you. Employers who use Indeed assessments to evaluate job seekers have seen 27% reduction in time to hire. So Indeed is looking for two different time improvements. One is to cut down the time from the time a job is posted till the time an applicant is scanned. So they want that time to be short, and they want this time to be short. A reduction in the time to hire, the time that you talk to somebody and then you offer them a job. So they want those two time frames to be short, and they're trying to use these different kinds of approaches to shorten that time. Now, Sarah?
So you have a 30% likelihood to get a positive response. That's assuming that you do well on the test. What if you don't? I know you don't have to post it.
If you don't do well on the assessment, then the employer is likely going to, unless there's some other mitigating circumstance or something else they see on the resume that makes them really keen on you in spite of your poor performance, generally if you do poorly on the test, you're going to be eliminated.
But that also means, you can take the test but not necessarily turn it on, correct?
Right, and we're going to get into that. But if an employer says, I want you to take this test, then they want that, they are going to see that score. Okay, so we'll get to that, but good question. And then somewhere I read, and I was not able to find it again, somewhere I read that this whole process of the assessments is leading to more diverse candidates being hired because they're not necessarily disqualifying you because you don't have a degree or because they can tell what race you are, or they can tell that you're older, or they can, whatever, that judging you based on your abilities as demonstrated in these tests. Now, if you're somebody who can't take tests, then that's an issue. That might be a disability that you could get some sort of an accommodation for. But in general, hiring people based on a skills test increases the diverse hires that people get. But I could not find that statistic. All right, so here is the most frequently asked question. Can I see my assessment scores? And the answer, as you will see, is both yes and no. If your assessment was designed by a company, if a company, you applied for a job, you found a job on Indeed, and you tried to apply for it, and they said, first we want you to take this assessment, then you don't see that. That score goes to the company, and only the company and whoever within the company that they want to see that tested, and you don't ever know how you did. However, if you proactively said, wow, I want to test myself in as many of these 50 assessments as I possibly can, and you proactively take these tests, then you can see how you scored. You can never take them again, but you can see how they scored. They will be part of your profile on Indeed, but you can, if you sucked at taking these tests, you have the option of making them public or to an employer or not making them public. What I was not able to find out, which would be a very good question for us to ask Indeed next Friday, is what if you take these 50 tests? They're all part of your profile. They tell you a great deal of information about you and what you're capable of. And then the company says, I want somebody to take these two Indeed tests. I want you to take problem solving, and I want you to take, whatever, Python. And you've already taken them, and you've already got them, blinded on your... Then do they have to see those if your scores weren't good? I assume that that's what would happen. That if the company wants to see them, then you have a choice. Are you going to make those test scores obvious to them, visible to them or not? And if you don't make them visible, is that going to keep you from getting selected by that company? And I would assume the answer is yes. But will they get to see them if you've already blinded them? I'm not sure about that. Maybe then you have to make another choice. Yes?
Well, I think it came from part of that.
Okay, great.
3 weeks ago, when I talked to him, he was pitching the assessment test. And I think he said, let's say every 6 months you can retake a test.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll ask. So what Jeff said was when he met with Indeed last week, they were pitching the assessment test. They were trying to get him to take tests. They really want to get a lot of people to take them, and they want to have tested people in a big inventory, essentially, so that they can very quickly match you to a job, put you automatically in the pipeline of a company. So they want you to be tested and be at the ready to go meet with a company. And so he said that they said, or he believes he remembers that they said that every 6 months you can retake a test. So if that is the case, then that's different from what they initially did. But they're learning too. They're using, they're beta testing, they're trying to get a lot of samples, and people really want to take the test again. If a test reveals that you're weak in some area and you improve in that area, should you not be allowed to take a test again? Or maybe they would have different versions of a test, so if you've already taken version 1, then maybe you'd be able to take version 2. Yes?
And then I think you just set it up there, I'm not clear now, but you can choose whether to show your score or not.
Right.
But it's not clear to me if you can show one, it's not clear.
Okay, so he said it is true that you can decide whether companies are able to see your test scores. You can keep them public, make them private or public. But he said he wasn't sure if you could do that with individual tests. But I think you can. I think each test you take, you can decide if it can be public or private. Yes, sir.
So my question is, since this is a beta test on their side, would it only be fair for us to run a beta test on our side and set up a beta profile, so to speak, take the test, see how you do, become familiar with their platform and the way they're presenting this, and then create your own real-time permanent, and then take the test again? That's only fair, in my opinion. That's just an opinion.
Well, this is not a beta test on their part. They had a beta test on their part, and they made some changes after that, and so this is real time. There are 90,000 people that are in this this new platform that we're going to be talking about. So so there's quite a few people that have already gone through this, and many of them have gotten jobs. But it is a process that Indeed is willing to alter if it's not working out. If they're getting a lot of pushback, that's one of the reasons they come here on Fridays, is that they want to see how is this playing out to our job seekers, because they can't make money unless they have job seekers that want to use this approach.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I want this council to be recorded, but hypothetically, if somebody creates a different account, how is LinkedIn going to know? But I would point out it's probably going to be invested on your time, so I don't want to do this for tester, I'm sure.
Okay, so he was saying, for those of you who couldn't hear, if you were to do that, to create a pseudo identity, in order to kind of game the system a little bit. How would they ever know? We're going to show you that when you do go into this, I mean, you can take all of these tests that you want, and I assume you could, I mean, you're in Indeed, you've got your resume, it's connected to your resume in Indeed, and so I think it would come back to bite you eventually anyway. But then there's another level of this that we're going to get into where you have quite an identity. There's a lot of information about you on Indeed, and you've got coaching and anyway. But this part is open to anybody. So you can go in there, you can take the assessments, you can see how you did, and you can decide if you want this to be part of your Indeed profile that employers look at or not. Yes, sir.
Two things. LinkedIn has a similar assessment program they started. And as far as gaming the system, so to speak, it might be to your advantage to choose assessments that apply to that are low impact for your career, that aren't going to make a difference, so you can kind of get a feel for how they structure their tests before you take ones that are critical if you want them.
That's again, for those that didn't hear, he said if you are going to try to check out the system, you hate to go in there and check out the system on something that's critical to your career, where if you blow it, then it's going to taint your marketability through a vehicle as massive as Indeed or LinkedIn, either one. And so if you start with some things that are not very related, it's like, what is your greatest weakness? One way to answer that irritating question is to give a weakness that doesn't have anything to do, like a skill that doesn't have anything to do with the job that you're going after. You're not going to say that you're great, if you're an executive assistant, you're not going to say your greatest weakness is Microsoft Office, because that's your, duh. But if you go in and take an assessment in an area that's not critical to your occupation, then you can kind of see how it goes, and you can practice that way. All right. So once upon a time, long ago, years ago, for those of you who've been in and out of Launchpad, back when we met at the Millennium Center, I had a talk with Indeed, and they talked to me then about prime people. Back then, what they told me, which was not verified by the research that I did last night, they said that they were experimenting with prime candidates who were developers or who were in sales. What I found here was not anything about sales. It was all about technical folks. It was about developers. But if you had a resume on Indeed that looked as if you were a top-level developer, then they would approach you and say, hey, take this assessment, and the sales thing as well. If you were really successful, you were a top-level salesperson, you took an assessment that confirmed that, and then you were designated as a prime candidate. And there were also prime employers who only wanted to see prime candidates. And so they said, I don't want to see 200 resumes on people that aren't, cream of the crop, top-notch folks. I only want to see those people. And they would pay Indeed a little bit more to see only those people, and they would pay more money. Their salaries were a little bit higher. So this affected only the top 5% of what I think happened back then was primarily developers, the top 5% only, and they were heavily vetted by skills assessments, and then they didn't want these people who were very, very talented in developing, but perhaps weren't very good at people skills, perhaps didn't interview well. They didn't want them to embarrass Indeed by having a poor showing in an interview, and so they reached out to them and they provided them with a great deal of free coaching. And so they taught them how to interview, they taught them how to negotiate salaries, they talked to them about networking, and so they were the cream of the crop, Indeed referrals, essentially. So today, they changed that. They don't have Prime anymore. Prime has been rebranded, redefined, and renamed. And it's now called, this is kind of goofy, I think, but it's called BeSeen. And so essentially it is seen by Indeed. And this is the way that they write it. Seen and then by Indeed is in tiny little print. So you hardly even understand what that's talking about. But they know that because we have a tech drought right now is what they call it. And so to just concentrate on the top 5% of people who are very experienced and highly skilled and try to get them jobs, they don't need your stinking help getting a job. You know, these are the top people, they can get a job. And companies very often, if all the companies wanted only those top level people, what's going to happen to the rest of us? And so because of the current situation in the workforce, they've expanded this whole program. And they know that some companies want to see those top elite people, but lots of companies want to see people who maybe have a strong background in a different industry and they've just crossed over into their industry. Or they want to see people straight out of college because they want to, you know, they want to hire talented people who are self-taught maybe even. And so they said, we don't want to see just those elite people. And so now they are servicing a range of companies and a broad base of talent, lots of different kinds of backgrounds. And so it's not as elite, but 90,000 people are participating in Seen by Indeed. And these are people in the US, in the UK, and in Ireland. And I would imagine that eventually, because Indeed is all over the place, and in fact, they love people who have your kind of global background. So it could be that you could easily get a job at Indeed if you would like to. And so anyway, they feel that there is a place for everybody to be seen. However, everybody in technology. I suspect that eventually they're going to spread this out. Everybody from all different disciplines can take the assessments. But this business about Seen by Indeed, this is only for people in technology. I see those hands. Ms. Sarah?
When I fill out applications, I mean not application, but job that Indeed has posted in my field, as soon as I fill that application, send it out, I get an automatic, and I don't know why that is, but an automatic job opening at Indeed. Do you know why that's? And it's inviting me to apply at Indeed.
And what kind of work is it that you do?
I'm National Account Director for Pharmaceutical.
Oh, that's right. So it's not technology at all. Well, it could be that they appreciate some of the skills you have, and that's not part of this tech-only thing, but they want you to apply because of your interesting and varied background.
So I think that was what you said.
So very possibly, yes?
You know, they keep talking about this tech drought. But is there really a drought? What I have seen is these companies want you to, I mean, I'm a project manager, but now I get jobs and they want me to do data modeling. Well, data modeling is a whole different thing. Or they want you to be a SQL coder, or they want you to be everything. So I'm not sure if there's really a drought, but the fact that the companies are wanting, you know, everything in one package, and, you know, if you're a SQL expert, you're not going to necessarily be a data modeler. And if you're a data modeler, you may not know SQL.
Well, I think part of...
I find that they are asking for more and more credentials, or more and more
Certifications.
They want a
Requirements.
SQL coder, but they also want you to be a database administrator, and they want you to be this, and they want this, and yada, yada, yada.
That's been a situation with startups for many years, because startups very often don't have the money to pay lots of different people, so they want to hire a few people who have many different skills. And so it's been very challenging. And there does seem to be a drought, especially in some of the high-tech cities, like Seattle and Portland and Silicon Valley and Austin and places like that, where we seem to have more tech job openings, and often specific tech job openings with specific skills, then we have people with those skills. And the people...
My question is, if there are all these jobs available in Austin that they talk about, why is this room full?
Well, this room isn't full. We used to be fuller. We used to have 300 people at our meetings every Friday. The largest number was 357. Our attendance is always in inverse proportion to the economy, and so our numbers are lower when the economy is strong.
I wonder, would you mind asking folks in the room to raise their hands if they are looking for tech jobs or if they are not?
Okay. Raise your hand if you are in a career field that we would consider high-tech. So it looks as though it is about half, maybe a slim half. And then you get to the point where sometimes there's age discrimination. Sometimes the skills are not the current skills that they want. Somebody's had, 25, 30 years experience, and their skills are not the hot, trendy skills that are in demand. So it varies. And also, the crazy part of all of this is that companies seem unwilling to train. They'd rather lay people off who've worked for them for a long time and hire new people, either fresh out of school or new people that have the skills they want, rather than to train. Now, this gentleman is somebody that I don't understand exactly, because you're a Java developer, right? But with limited experience, right? You had one decent, good job, and now you're in transition. Okay. And such a cool guy, besides. You can kind of tell by looking. But he's young, and he's the, he kind of is the right everything. And so I keep thinking, oh, well, we won't be seeing you much longer. So, but in a way, it reflects also the fact that I hope all of you are, as long as you can hold out, that you're picky yourself, that you're selective, that you're not going to take the first offer that comes along. You're not going to work for a sweatshop. You've done that before. And you're going to be selective, and you're going to wait for the job that's right for you. And maybe this will help you with that as well. So instead of just applying for a job with a resume, what this Seen by Indeed does is it also asks other sorts of questions that lets you be a little bit more in control. They ask you about your experience. They ask you for your skills, the scores that you have on assessments. What are your interests? What are your career aspirations? What's your desired salary? What's your desired location? What kind of a culture are you looking for? How big a team do you want to work for? So they ask you a lot of things that nobody ever asked you before, because they're trying with this new system to make a fit that's a good fit for you and what you're looking for, and a good fit with a company that offers those things. So they want this not to be just making you pretzel yourself around and be what the company is looking for. They want this system to enable you to find a job that's also a good fit for you. So you have to applaud them for at least paying attention to the fact that it should go both ways. It's still just tech, but it's broader. It's more. It incorporates more things within tech, and I'm hoping that eventually, the same way that it worked with Prime, that now we have assessments and things in lots of different areas. I'm hoping that eventually this too, Seen by Indeed, will also be expanded to every career field. And not just tech. But you're going to see they've got some product manager stuff, they've got project managers, and so it's a little bit broader interpretation of tech. And then also, as part of this Seen by Indeed, there's lots of one-on-one coaching in many different areas. And I was going to go online and show you this, but our video going back and forth between online and PowerPoint is problematic for our system. And so what I've done is put a lot of this just on PowerPoint slides, but I'm going to show you where to go to look, and you should go play around, click on everything, and see what you find. So part of one of the 3 companies that Indeed bought recently is a company called Fast Match, and it reduces the time that I told you about between the job post and the candidate screen. And so because it matches people up more quickly, but it can't match you up quickly until it knows a lot more about you than just what have you put on your resume. So that's why they're asking you a lot more questions. So then once they have this big pool, so they've got this 90,000 person pool with a lot of information about each of those people, and then they use this software, Fast Match, in order to find candidates and say, you'd be a good fit for this job, and find jobs and say, you know, there's candidates that they even are automatically putting some candidates into the company's pipelines. They just make that choice because they know that it's a good fit. And so they throw them into the pipeline as well. And then it instantly adds candidates to company pipelines. 50% of all the candidate screens are now sourced on Indeed. So half of all of the candidates that are found by companies on Indeed are sourced by BeSeen. So that's a pretty big percentage of them. And then they also have a calendar integrated, and so you say, you know, what days you're available, and they, with a click, they'll set up an interview for you. So all of that is already in, and they wanted, it's that whole point about trying to get you to talk to somebody more quickly. So these times when you put in an application and then you wait for 2 weeks or 2 months, and then all of a sudden they contact you and they say, we'd like to talk to you, really? And so all of this is supposed to help them make these connections faster. And then where you need to go is another secret Indeed site that's called BeSeen.com. And again, once you look it out in very tiny print after BeSeen, it'll say by Indeed. BeSeen by Indeed. So you can't, there is no website to go in that's seen by Indeed.com or whatever. There's no website for that. This is the website, and it's not called Seen, it's called BeSeen, BeSeen.com. You go into BeSeen.com, and the first thing they ask you, they say, here's how it works, and they say, what do you want to do? So what do you want to do? And these are the options. And then underneath each of these 11 options, there are subcategories. And so so one of them was project management. So one of the categories was project management, and since we have so many project managers in Launchpad, and since they tell you that if you can manage any project, or if you get your PMP or whatever, then you can manage any kind of project. It doesn't have to be software or whatever. So I thought I'd look that up. So I clicked on the PM, and under that they had these subgroups. That within project management is also the director of product. So that's a little bit different. Scrum Master, so that's that whole agile methodology piece. Product Manager and Chief Product Officer. So they have those subgroups. And then once you have selected what's your subgroup, so one of the subgroups is Project Manager. And so when I selected that, then it takes me to choose a city. Where you would like to work. And they start off asking you to just choose one city, and then they say you can add more later on. But for right now, to create this profile, just tell us the one city. So I threw in Austin, I did that, and then it says, so what motivates you? What makes you excited about going to work? Is it doing something that's meaningful? And that's exactly what Ashley said, right? That you wanted a job where it meant something, where you were doing good. And so that would be her highest motivation, perhaps. Is it learning new things? Do you want to constantly are you curious? Do you just want to learn new technology? Is it the money? Is it working with a really smart team of people? Or is it something totally different? And then they give you a chance to explain that. So what motivates you? What do you love? And then what size team do you want to work with? Fewer than 5? Should really be fewer than 5, but I won't be picky. 5 to 20, 20 to 40, or 40 plus. And then what are your skills? And they listed, I just put down the number of skills that would, from the big list that they had, I just put down the ones that would fit on the screen. But they said, if you don't have any of these, we have 500 skills that you can choose. So you can see that they're getting more and more kind of granular about what you're able to provide to a company. And then the coaching services, nobody is actually going to coach you in this way. I just like the picture. But the coaching services that they offer, and they have so any of you who've been a career coach or a job search skills coach, if you wanted to sign up to be a coach, they say, here, meet our coaches. And you can click on somebody and they'll tell you a little bit about their background and why they're considered to be experts in this field. And they will help you with resume review, interview prep, career transition, salary negotiation, networking, and career advancement. So they help you plan out a whole career plan. Yes, sir.
Kathy, could I ask a question? Could we go back just a few slides? Couple more. Okay, on this setup here, what if you don't want to necessarily do just one of those jobs? If you want to work for a small startup where you maybe do hardware design, some software, some validation, and a few things like that, is there any choices or places you can go?
Since I only clicked on you should go in there and look. And like, let's say that your primary thing is going to be hardware. Once you click on hardware, and you can see what the subgroups are from hardware, and then maybe when it's skills, the skills that you pull out will be those skills that are not related, that are something different. So you say, I also have I'm a hardware designer, but I also have skills in verification. I have skills in project management. So you could have that as part of your skills. So you get those keywords onto your. I think that would be how you would do it. And then I wanted to read you. So then there are success stories, and there's a ton of them. I only chose Catherine because she's from Austin, and I also wanted you to see about her struggle. So they have her photograph, and it says, what is your background? So all of these success stories, they talk a little bit about what was your background, and they're from all over the world, not just the United States. So she says, and you can tell from her picture that, and she's not this person, and she's not this young, but she's young. She looks as though she's in her 20s, if her picture is accurate. And so it's so interesting because a lot of us think, oh, young people have it so easy. It sounds as though she should be the perfect, most employable person ever. She says, I am a software engineer with a double major in computer science and mathematics. I had worked professionally for 4 years prior to signing up for BeSeen. And that is exactly what you want, somebody who's a graduate with technical skills and who's had some work experience, so they've developed that work ethic and references, and they know how to do this. And so you would think that she was perfect. I was looking for a new local challenge that would advance my career while allowing me to create a real impact in the world. I want to continue to program while exploring leadership roles. What triggered your job search? What drew you to BeSeen? I was working from home at a job that wasn't going to offer a lot of potential growth. I was ready to get into an office environment at a place where I could stretch my wings with support and new challenges. I think a lot of job seekers will agree that the most frustrating part is when you don't hear anything back from a company. And I would have thought that everybody would get back to her, that she would not be one of these people that you don't, that doesn't hear from folks. She's most marketable. You send out resumes all day long, and you never hear a rejection from at least 50% of the places you apply to. It's demoralizing and draining. That's why I was interested in BeSeen. The employers come straight to you. I was intrigued by the idea that I wouldn't have to send out my resume over and over, and I honestly couldn't believe it was free to job seekers. I figured this would be the perfect thing to try. My job search picked up immediately after registering with BeSeen. The first interview request I received was for the position with Indeed that I accepted. So there you go.
I just looked at it again, and there's another one that just brought up.
They like you. They like you. The job search became less of a game of numbers, sending out 10 resumes just to hope you hear back from 2, and more of a real question of, is this the right job for me? It was really unbelievable. It was so much easier than all other job search methods. The ability to set when you would be available for interviews is really convenient. It helps avoid the awkward situation at your current place of employment, for example. And she says, this job, what excites you about your new role? This job seems to be everything I always wanted out of a role but never knew it existed. I get to work on rotating projects. There's always a new challenge. There's a ton of room to grow and learn new things. The team I'm working with is great. Best of all, I truly believe Indeed is making a positive and lasting impact on the world, and I'm now part of that. And then it says tips for fellow job seekers, and it essentially says have confidence, trust your gut about a position and a company. If it feels wrong, it's wrong. Try BeSeen. It takes a lot of the brutal bits out of a job hunting and makes it a wonderful process. So one of the things that's interesting about Nasera is that she was in pharmaceutical sales. So nothing tech, and yet not going through BeSeen, but just applying for things. They say, here's a job with Indeed that you might want to consider. And so maybe, so for the other people that are not tech, it still is possible that once you apply for a job, people are looking at your qualifications and they're getting back to you. And it could be that some of you people like supply chain, I looked for all you supply chain folks. I didn't see any of that in that list, but it could be that you've managed projects, you've managed supply chain projects. You could maybe go into that, and that could be your foot in the door title. And then if they've got 500 different skills, surely something in there is going to have to do with logistics and coordination and, inventory, computerized inventory systems. That's tech. And so maybe some of you whose jobs don't seem overtly to be technology, there's a technology component to everything. You place in an order at McDonald's, there's a technology component there. So maybe you can use BeSeen and somehow pretzel it around to fit your particular situation. Yes?
The job it's suggesting for you, is it appropriate to your skills?
Yeah, it's account executive.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Often you'll even apply for a job and you'll get like a suggestion.
No, I mean, and it is Indeed, so it really narrows down to.
That's great.
Michael?
I work for a couple executive companies where in HR, and a lot of times when we came across people who just had really good skills, regardless of the perfect match, we reached out to them. We just want to get in, get a face-to-face. You never know where you can place them, so you might fit somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So he's been a human resource executive. He's been a consultant. He's been a director. So he's been a higher level than just a recruiter. And that is the case that once you get to talk to somebody, once you get to explain your varied and vast skill set, that they do have something for you. But the problem, of course, is that gall-darn applicant tracking system where getting through to where a human being will actually take a look at your background and appreciate the fact that you've got something a little bit unique in that skill set. So we've been playing all these games with JobScan, but if this is going to make it easier to be actually looked at for the unique and varied skill set that you all bring to a job, then how cool is that? Uh-huh.
So the other thing I do too is, as soon as I apply for a job, I'll take the company, go on LinkedIn, and then check who the CEO and who
Right.
the human resource person are for that. And I'll first connect with them, and then the second thing I do is send them an email saying, hey, I applied for the position. Would you please take a look at it? And you can see it on your phone that they view your...
Yeah, very often they will do, could you guys all hear that over there? So what she said was, when she finds a job that she's interested in, she goes onto LinkedIn, and she'll do a search for the CEO and the hiring manager or the HR person from that company. And then she reaches out to the recruiter or the hiring manager or whatever, and she'll connect with them. And in the connection invitation, she'll say, I just applied for the position with your company of this. Would you take a look at my resume and my LinkedIn application? And she said that very often they will do that. They'll take a look at her because they're trying to fill a job. They're trying to fill a job. They're trying to find you, and you're trying to find them. And so that's the beauty of LinkedIn, is that you're able to make those connections, and don't worry about whether you know them or not. You're helping them out. Michael.
Nasira gave me some good advice, and I just recently did it. I reached out. I was a lot of the jobs that were out there are lower than what I've been done before. So I reached out and targeted executive HR recruiters. I sent out 6 kind of LinkedIn requests with my resume to them. 3 of them have already gotten back to me.
Oh, fabulous.
I had barbecue with one Tuesday, and we got lunch with 2 more next week, so I just went straight to them.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So LinkedIn or Indeed?
I went through LinkedIn.
But it's specifically recruiters, because they get paid if you get hired. So you want to narrow down the recruiters for your field. And then I do that on a weekly basis. I will just connect with recruiters in my field. And then you'll be surprised on how many hits you get. It's just really...
And also, we've told this to people before, make sure that everywhere your resume is, if it's on LinkedIn, if it's on Indeed, if it's on Career Builder, wherever your resume, Dice, wherever it is, go into it once a week and make a small change. And it can be adding a new skill and then taking the skill out, or adding a space and taking the space out the next week and putting it back in the week after. It doesn't have to be a massive change, but you make a small change, and then you come out as a newly minted job seeker. And so you should get, it's like refreshing your application, and you should come out on recruiter searches more often.
One more thing about that is, one of the companies the field that I want to get in now is more the medical or healthcare and devices, so I targeted that. And within the last 2 weeks, one of the companies I've been looking at is Centene, which is they do a lot of the insured, and I had an interview yesterday with the hiring manager, and we'll see if I go forward to face-to-face. That was the way.
That's great. So we're going to, don't forget, from 2 to 4, our satellite class today is going to be on LinkedIn and JobScan, 2 really important tools in the job search. So I hope that everybody can come to those. But anyway, so thank you very much. That's the end of my story. And I'm sorry, Tim.
So to get to the different things here, you mentioned BeSeen, you mentioned Fast Match, you mentioned BeSeen. So is BeSeen the way that you start the whole
BeSeen is what you want to go into if you're in tech.
Okay. Is that how you get into the Seen by Indeed thing?
Yes.
Okay. And Fast Match, that's just behind the scenes, that's nothing, there's no FastMatch.com.
Fast Match is just a tool they're now using. They bought a company, and that was their software, and it's enabled them to do all of this more quickly. However, the last time Indeed was here, when I went to talk to them, the girl I was talking to said that, I said, what do you do at Indeed? And she said something like, I connect job seekers with jobs. And it sounded as though, I don't know if she was doing it just with the tech jobs on BeSeen, or if she was like the person that was sending stuff to Nasira, where they get people and they have a certain skill set, and they're able to then find jobs that have that skill set, and then they say, hey, check this out, or whatever, here's a job with us that you might be a good fit for. So that's something else that they're doing, and maybe it's for non-tech people that you don't necessarily have to. But if you're in tech, you absolutely should go into BeSeen.com, and you should register, and you should get your stuff on there, and then it'll have you either put in your Indeed resume or your resume, and then it looks at the totality of you based on all these skills and interests that you have, and so then you have access to those coaches. So if you're in tech at all, go into BeSeen.com and just click on everything until you get somewhere. And if you can't find it, talk to Indeed on Friday.